Greetings, everyone. Happy Easter Sunday 2020. This is Reverend Anna Jones making a short little video for everyone. I've been wanting to create a video like this for a very long time and actually start up posting videos more regularly on my YouTube channel. And so now I am feeling the impetus to do so and the inspiration to do so. So I am going to make a short little video for everybody here today. I feel like I have so many things to say, but there's no way I'm going to be able to fit it all in one video because I do want to keep it short for everybody. But I'm also going to lead us in a moment of silent prayer and silent meditation on this special day in the Christian tradition. First, let me just briefly, for those of you who are tuning into my work for the first time, introduce myself. Again, I'm Reverend Anna Jones, and I'm an interfaith minister. And so this is just a brief interfaith talk that I want to give on the subject of the power of love to heal all, which to me, Easter Sunday, especially this year, reminds me of. And this is a celebration of resurrection. It is a celebration of a new rebirth and new beginnings, and a constant eternal reminder of the eternality of the soul. So there's things that I just wanted to share with you all, and wanted to make this interfaith, not just also oriented towards the Christian tradition. As an interfaith minister, I work with people of all faiths and backgrounds, and feel that my ministry is not limited to just one denomination or one faith, and my background is also in studying world religions and working with the wisdom teachings and the mystical teachings and esoteric teachings found within world religions. Also very much interested in the mystical and the esoteric teachings because of being a modern mystic. And some of you are familiar with my work who will be receiving this video via email as a modern mystic that has mystical experiences, with a whole part of my ministry also being an angelic, what I call my angelic ministry. But there's three parts to my ministry work that's universal and that's broad, that's global. It's mostly through online. My outreach is through greatly, being involved in social media in a variety of different ways and a variety of different social media pages and groups that I host on a regular basis, some of which some of you already may be familiar with, especially on the social media platform of Facebook. I am host of course, the Reverend Anna Jones professional Facebook page, also the Magdalene Circle professional Facebook page, Holistic Healing with Anna Jones, and also Archangel Michael and the Legion of Light. And some of those pages have to do with different parts of my ministry, in addition to my own personal page that I have. So the different parts of my ministry, the first part of it is the part of it that I call the Sacred Heart, the Sacred Heart of the Divine, that each one of us through our hearts has a personal relationship with the Divine. And my role as an interfaith minister is not to convince you that my relationship is the right relationship for you, or that my understanding or my viewpoint is the same one that you're supposed to have. Instead, my role as an interfaith minister is to help you to go deeper into your heart, into the Sacred Heart within you, and to deepen and develop that personal relationship that you have with the Divine. It really, this part of a ministry really has to do with the path of the mystic, because a mystic is someone who engages deeply in their own personal relationship with the Divine. Even if engaged in a religion, if we go deep into that religion and deep into the connectedness that is ultimate, because the word religion means to relink. Religio is it literally translates to from Latin as to link or to connect. So if we go personal enough, if we go deep enough into that, whatever religious connection or religious affiliation that we have, we will actually go into the heart or the essence of that personal connection that we all have with the divine. In fact, even in the world religions, it's my realization from the thousands of people that I've worked with, the thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that I've interacted with throughout my ministry. Actually, it's in the millions now because of the Archangel Michael and Legion of Light ministry work that I do, the outreach work that I do. So my realization about that is that because that Sacred Heart connection that we all have in our hearts with the divine directly is so unique and so personalized that it's almost as if there's that each and every person has their own unique religion. It's like their own unique understanding, so to speak, even if they are following one religious path. So that said, honoring the world religions in my presentation first this morning, I want to read a few quotes and then get into talking about Easter and the celebration of Easter. Because what has motivated me to start these videos, and I'm actually being guided, mystically guided, intuitively guided to put out several of them right now. But what has motivated me to doing it has been this global pandemic crisis, this global health crisis that we are in at the moment, and the great need that is there for people to connect with each other through videos, through webinars, through teleconferencing, through phone calls, and to stay connected while we are apart, right? So practicing social distancing, which I truly believe is a very important thing for us to be doing right now, and simultaneously staying connected. So staying connected, yet being able to practice that social distancing, staying apart and yet staying connected, staying together. So that's motivated me. And as another part of my ministry, so I spoke about the Sacred Heart part of my ministry, another part of it is my healing ministry. And part of my healing ministry is I do spiritual healing and energy healing for people both used to be in person, down to person right now, as well as through a distance. In fact, so much of my energy healing and spiritual healing work has been offered through a distance over the last 10 years, 7 years especially. So one of the things that as a healer I am able to do, there's many different aspects to my healing work, my healing ministry, but I'm also highly empathic, and I'm able to feel energy very, very strongly and palpably. And not just emotional energy, actually, but super strong emotional energy. I'm able to feel emotional energy. I'm also a physical empath and what I call an environmental empath, which means also picking up energies, not just from the earth, yes, from the earth, but then also picking up energies and being able to feel them from the collective energy fields that exist on the earth. So I'm an energy empath and energy sensitive on 3 different levels as a part of that healing work and as part of healing ministry. And then I use tools such as angelic healing. I use tools such as Reiki. I use other tools for chakra balancing, meditation, crystal therapeutics, vibrational remedies, etc., sound healing, all those methodologies to affect energy and to affect energy fields, including my own blending of those in the sacred energy alchemy work that I offer on my website, AnnaJonesOnline.com. You can read more about it. I'm not going to go into talking any further about it. And then also in the combo sessions that I offer through my angelic healing Reiki, where I also combine my medical intuitive abilities, because not only do I have the ability to sense and feel energy, but I also have the ability to see and to receive lots of clairvoyant information through the spiritual sight, as well as information through my spiritual hearing. So all that said, why I explained that is because I have been feeling so much empathy, sympathy, which is not the same as empathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for, and empathy is feeling for, right? So just feeling for someone and feeling what someone is going through, actually feeling it for themselves, that's empathy. And then sympathy is feeling sorry for someone, feeling condolences, that type of thing is sympathy. So there's a big difference between the two, and people often get them confused. I've been feeling both for everything that we're going through. And for empaths right now, this can actually be a very tough time. But everyone, unless there's some degree of mental illness taking place, almost everyone has some level of empathy. There are certain mental illnesses, however, where there's lack of empathy and people don't have the ability to feel at all any empathy, but almost everybody has some degree. They're not empathic and they're not an empath, but they have some degree of empathy. Well, right now, that's even amped up. And there's a lot that everybody is feeling because of all of the global shifts that are happening, and because of all of the emotion of it all. There's so much more that people are able to feel empathetically, even if you're not an empath. And the unconscious reaction to facing all that we're facing, all of the fears that we're all having, the grief, the sorrow, the pain, the feeling for somebody, the unconscious reaction is to try to disconnect even more, like disconnect mentally and emotionally, and to disconnect from it so they don't have to feel it. And that's not the highest response, actually, when we are seeing things that are so painful, when we are hearing and feeling things that are so painful. It's best always to stay present and not disconnect from it. Detach, but that's a different scenario. We need to be detached and to practice a true form of surrender and detachment, but to stay present to it and not try to disconnect, not try to shut down, not try to suppress, but to actually practice compassion and love, which gets me into my Easter message, right? So what does all this have to do with her Easter message? So it's about practicing compassion and love. So I wanted to begin with talking about the, actually a few quotes is what I wanted to start with to get into the next segment that are based on the subject of compassion, because the only way we can stay present to the grief that we're feeling, and by the way, we're not, there's so much anger, there's so much fear, that's obvious. I think those are the obvious things that we can all say emotionally we have already felt, or we know people who are feeling, or that we can see in the world rampantly. But there's also there's a lot of grieving going on, whether we know it or not. What I've been seeing, especially when I'm interacting with people through social media, is a great deal of grieving, and people don't even know they're grieving. It's not just, we don't just grieve when we lose a loved one. Of course, there's deep, profound grief for that. And we always want to honor that people are losing loved ones, and that the things that they are afraid of, that it's not just fear. There's actually some real concern there. We don't want to fear, and we also don't want to make fear such a bad thing that we also don't use it for what it was created for. Because fear was created and given to us as a full spectrum of the human emotions. Fear was meant to inspire us to action. It was meant to inspire us to question. It was meant to inspire us to change and to make alterations and corrections and all those things. So we don't want to just say all fear is bad. There's no, first of all, it's a mistake for us to ever say that everything that something is about, including fear itself, is bad, because there is ultimately a highest good that is associated with everything. We just don't always see that. We don't always see it. We don't know that, including grief itself, as difficult as it is. And I think in some ways, grief is the most painful thing that we can go through. I feel that for myself. for so many that I've helped and assisted, that when grief is present and we're grieving the loss, not just of someone, but of something, then we are, then that can be the most painful and most difficult and deepest of those emotions that we deem negative emotions. I'm also not a fan or a proponent of just saying, don't have any negative emotions, don't have any, quote unquote negative emotions, don't have any quote unquote negative thoughts that are based on those negative emotions. I believe that we need to be optimists. In fact, my personality type as an intuitive feeler, is as an eternal optimist. But we also need to be realistic. And at the same time that we're being realistic, know that we can hold the two things combined. We can hold that we can still be positive and still work with, deal with, address those things that are hurtful and painful that we're feeling within ourselves, instead of just, again, if we try to just think, oh, that's a negative thought, I'm going to push that away, or that's a negative feeling, I'm just going to ignore that or push that away, then what ends up happening is we're just denying it and suppressing it. We're just pushing it or stuffing it inside or going into some kind of denial about it, just sticking it way back into the shadow of the unconscious, rather than letting it come up into the light, letting it come out, letting it be released, moving it through us, and not having it stay stuck. Because what really is negative, what's really hurtful and harmful and negative, if there's anything negative at all, there is, and there is, but is staying stuck in it. Is having it affect us on the unconscious level in ways that we don't even know, in ways that we can't process it because we got it stuffed so far in, or so far back into the unconscious, or so far deep into the shadow that we can't even process it, right? And so then it unconsciously continues to act and unconsciously continues to play itself out. So it's much better to face our feelings and process our feelings and communicate our feelings and our thoughts and express those in the healthiest way we can, and go through them in the healthiest way we can, and to use, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's ceremony or ritual, or any other like counseling, guidance, energy healing. There's so many different tools that are out there, homeopathic remedies, flower essences. There's so many tools that are out there for us to use for emotional support when we're going through difficult times, such as grief. Well, one of those is compassion. Where there's so much grief in the world. There's so much grief that's being caused by not just the loss of life, which is a great and deeply heartfelt thing that I am feeling, but also for the loss of our livelihoods. Many people millions of people losing their livelihoods worldwide right now and nationwide, and also for the loss of a way of life. And there's a loss of a lifestyle even that right now we're experiencing. So a loss of a way of life, a loss of a lifestyle, so many other things that we may feel are being lost to us that we want to be aware of, not afraid, but be aware of, allow those feelings and those emotions to process through us, and apply compassion and love towards ourselves and towards others and towards each other. So here's those quotes. Here are those quotes. So from Hinduism, there's a famous quote on compassion that comes from the Bhagavad Gita. And that quote is, when a person responds to the joys and sorrows as others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. Let me read that again. When a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. From the sacred scripture in Hinduism called the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 32. Also from the world religions, other quotes on compassion and living compassionately, applying compassion, having compassion. And then my talk on compassion here is going to lead us into love, and then we'll close. So then from Buddhism, compassion is a mind that savors only mercy and love for all sentient beings. So this is from the the Buddhist text, the Precious Garland 437, compassion is a mind that savors only mercy and love for all sentient beings. Then there's from Taoism, the one of the ancient indigenous religions of the world. I have just, and this is from the writings of Lao Tzu, I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, and compassion. These are your 3 greatest treasures. Also from Confucianism, wisdom, compassion, and courage are the 3 universally recognized moral qualities, written by Confucius. From the Native American Chief Seattle, here's a quote from Chief Seattle. Our God is the same God, whose compassion is equal to all. For we did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Let me read this last part of Chief Seattle's quote. Whatever we do to the web of life, we do to ourselves. So then that gets me into the Christian quotes on this celebration of Easter. For the sake of this video, I want to let you know that with my personal relationship with the divine, I use the Aramaic name for Jesus. So when I say Yeshua in everything that I might say from this point on in the video, I'm actually referring to Jesus, and that would have been the way that his name was pronounced in the language that he spoke. The language that he spoke was Aramaic, and so that pronunciation in Aramaic is called Yeshua. So Yeshua taught his disciples first to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That was one of his primary and key teachings. But the main commandment, the New Testament that he put forth, was around one central quote, one central teaching that he called the New Testament, that he called the New Commandment, to love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart and soul, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. Let me repeat that. To love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart and soul, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. In my work with this sacred teaching of love and of the power of love and compassion, over the years, I've broken it down and I've noticed at first, and it just never dawned on me years ago. It's been really truly through my years of my spiritual practice that this realization has come to me. But I've realized that there are 3 essential parts to that teaching: that sacred relationship with the divine that we have, and being in a loving relationship with that all-loving source of God or presence of God, universe, whatever name for God you want to use, that eternal spirit, that lover and beloved of the soul, that Holy Spirit. Again, there's innumerable names, right? Innumerable names and descriptions for God. Be in that loving connection, that loving relationship with that divine source, and to love others as thyself. So there's 2 more parts there. So there's the first part, then to love others as thyself has 2 parts to it. It has the power of loving others, the power of loving self, and the necessity to do it. And I think in the teaching itself also gives us one of the keys as to how to do it, and maybe to the limitations that we feel in doing it. Because the as thyself part, that we are perhaps limited to how much love and compassion we can give, and definitely limited. There's no doubt about, maybe somebody might not feel that they're limited in their giving, but I still think that we can limit ourselves as to even how much we have the capability and capacity to give by how much we love and have compassion and love for ourselves, but definitely in our ability to receive. So our ability to receive that love back is limited by how much we love ourselves. And of course, that is an important thing, that we be able to receive the love and compassion from others so that others can even give it, right? So that others can even give it to us. And so that loving others as thyself. And one of the things that's come to me many times through the meditative work that I do with the angelic realm and the higher beings, is that the love that we feel for each other is deeply connected and intertwined with compassion. And some of those messages that I received in meditative states have said that that we can have compassion without love. We can feel compassion and not feel love for someone, but we can't have love without compassion. It was eye-opening when I first received that divine message and was able to really think back on it and reflect and really kind of realize the impact of that. Oh, okay, I can have compassion and not love someone. I can be compassionate and act towards compassion, which is the precursor to love. It's a precursor to being able to have it. But we can't have love without compassion because it is a precursor to love. It's a necessity. It's a necessary part of love. So one of the things that I've been looking at and working with, especially through things that I've been seeing in social media, is that we're not just dealing with a crisis right now that is a crisis of grief and a crisis of health crisis, obviously, but a crisis of grief and a crisis of loss of so many things. From what I'm seeing, and again, I'm only seeing my own little, little piece of the world, my own little piece of the pie of those I interact with and those that I work with. From what I'm seeing right now, and I'm not sure why it is, I'm also seeing a crisis of compassion. So it is my hope and it is my prayer that this message inspire that I'm delivering today, and that this Easter Sunday and the magic and the blessing of it, even though it's different than perhaps I know it's the most different one than any of the one that I've experienced in my lifetime, that any of us may have ever experienced, even though it's different, that sacred energy is there, because it's not what makes the resurrection and the celebration of it sacred, and what makes Yeshua's presence in our life and presence in this world a blessing is not necessarily found in a building or in a church or even amongst congregational prayer or congregational worship, even though, believe me, I understand the power of all those things and believe very much in the power of sacred place and sacred space, and how coming together is so important. But again, we can do that in a variety of ways. But this blessing of Yeshua can help to lift us out of this crisis of compassion that we're also seeing, where I've just been in awe of some of the stuff that I'm seeing and hearing being talked about and discussed and circulating around, and a lot of the false information that's being circulated and misleading things and distrust and disrespect, and it's just yesterday I was planning on making this video, and there was just no way that I could, because my mind was just kind of being so blown by it. Actually, I was seeing just this need that is there for us to increase the compassion and to put our compassion into action, to have fearless compassion and to put our compassion into action. And this is what Yeshua demonstrated, not only in his death and his resurrection, but also through the way that Yeshua lived and everything that came afterwards, through the ascension, through everything. So every part of Yeshua's life and every part of Yeshua's life story is to exemplify fearless compassion and putting that fearless compassion into action. And we may not be able to put it into action by walking out our doors and going and doing a bunch of things at this moment, but there are a lot of different ways that we can put it into action and put love, unconditional love, that Yeshua also exemplified and taught, because Yeshua was, the early Christians did not call it Christianity. They called his movement a movement of the way of love. That's what they called that movement. They called his movement the way of love. The religion, the organized religion of Christianity came much later. It's a whole other conversation, much too much to get into. But that practice of following his example and living their lives out of that fearless compassion and that unconditional love, and spreading that teaching of unconditional love. It is the single most important thing that I can think of to talk about here on Easter Sunday, because it was the single most important thing in all of what Yeshua did in his life, for the crucifixion, for the resurrection, for the ascension, etc. So I want to just inspire you all, encourage you all to look at new ways and creative ways in which we may not, again, be able to walk outside our door and go do something that's an act of compassion, but maybe it's through calling up somebody you haven't talked to in a while, and they've been feeling perhaps alone, and they needed to hear a kind word, or just hear somebody else's voice. Or maybe it's through donating through a food bank. I know that there are lots of people who aren't working, who might not be able to do that, but there are still lots of people who are working, and if you are blessed to be able to do that, which I'm blessed that my work and my ministry is continuing at this time, and pray that it do continue, if we can give somehow to some of the food banks, even if it's just calling them up and saying, hey, can I have a delivery made to the food bank? Doesn't mean we got to go get the food and go drop it off, and all of those things that aren't part of the social distancing protocols in the vast majority of the states right now. So it may be getting a delivery made, or maybe a cash donation to the food banks so that can happen. And then all kinds of other creative ways. We are meant to use our capacities as co-creators that were given to us, the divine gifts that were given to us. We're meant to use them. Our capacity to dream. I did a whole series about this last year based on information that was given, mystical guidance that came through the meditative state. So whole series last year based on teachings from Archangel Michael that came through those mystical experiences, on the power that we have through our ability to dream, and the power of intention, the power to imagine, and to use our imagination, and to envision, and to use our spiritual sight and our spiritual vision to manifest. So if we can dream and even intend and imagine and envision, and then do anything we can to manifest, even if it's manifesting it through artwork or things that we do, that is another way of compassionately expressing our feelings or our emotions, compassionately, instead of just holding that on, which is an act of compassion for yourself. If you're just holding into that anger, that fear, that grief, that sorrow, maybe that despair, and going into hope and belief and faith, and being fearless in our faith and fearless in our compassion, and using that, and using any tools that we have, including prayer, including if some of you are trained in Reiki or energy work, being able to do that through a distance. There's so many things that we can do, that we don't have to be in the physical presence to do it, but we do have to put that compassion into action. The resurrection itself is an incredible act of love and compassion. It's love and compassion in action for our world and for our future. And there's many more things to say about this that I don't have time to get into today. But I'm hoping that we just use that creative power that we've been given in whole new ways, including to create the solutions to create our world, our way forward, rather than spending a lot of time and energy talking about things that there is a lot of, don't like to use the word conspiracy theory, because to me there's just theories. There's a lot of theories, but there are conspiracy theories that are out there, theories that aren't based in facts and that are based in misinformation and false information. And for me, I question everything, and I think it's healthy for us to question everything. But it is also healthy for us to take a holistic view and a holistic approach to things. And one of the pieces of information also that I've been given in the messages that I've received from as a mystic from the angelic realm is that there's truth in everything, but not everything is true. And some things are more true than other things. And that's the problem, is there's sometimes a seed or a kernel of truth, but then imagination and all other kinds of things can get added, and maybe even not even good intentions perhaps involved in how some of those things can explode. And what my problem is with any or all of those things is not whether even something is, how much of it's true, how much of it is not, is how much energy does it divest? You know, how much energy does it take? How much energy of ours do we divest into things if it's taking our energy away from staying in compassion, from staying in love, from staying in awareness, from being present, from being in the now, from being able to be active and proactive and in our hearts and staying in our hearts. If anything is divesting our energies and other things, then it's someplace to like maybe take our energies out of and put our energies back into the heart, you know, back into keeping the heart open. I'm still working on my book, The Teachings of Archangel Michael, book 2. It was planned, everything was planned in my spring tour. I was gonna go to Sedona, I was gonna come back, and the book was gonna have its launch, it was gonna have its online launch, and I was gonna go on a spring tour in the Washington DC area. There's all these things that I was planning on doing this spring that's all been rearranged. My life, everything's been turned upside down and rearranged also. But the book is called Keeping Your Heart Open at all times and under all circumstances. At all times and under all circumstances. And I didn't even realize what the circumstances were going to be when it was getting close to the time of publishing this book. And now I'm like going, oh yeah, wow, yeah, under all circumstances. So keeping our hearts open under all circumstances, and being in awareness, and of course that means, you know, we can definitely, you know, stand up for what we believe in. And I'm not saying suppress anything, right? I'm not saying suppress our views or suppress our feelings or nothing. This is the opposite message of that, right? So I'm just saying that watch where that takes our energy. You know, definitely we have to stand up for the truth. This is maybe one of the most important times ever that we have to stand up for the truth and stand up for each other and stand up for wisdom and apply that wisdom, the wisdom of the ancients, the holistic integration of science and spirituality. Science and spirituality do not have to be at odds with each other. We can listen to the scientists and we can follow the spiritual wisdom and spiritual principles. We can strengthen our immune system and we can stay socially distanced. You know, we can integrate, we can holistically integrate. And the holistic integration that needs to take place in us is the integration between the mind and the heart. So if something takes us into our mind too much and divests and diverts too much of our mind's energy, bring it back and bring it back to the heart and bring it back to the heart of the matter, which is no matter what, the love has the power to heal. And that loving of ourselves, that loving of each other, love and compassion towards each other has the power to heal us from the inside out, has the power to heal our communities and heal our societies, just like Yeshua exhibited the power to heal all. He rose, Lazarus, the story of Lazarus, we were just reading, my husband and I, this earlier today, that the resurrection of Lazarus from the dead just preceded the crucifixion just a week or so before, that it was like very close to the time, and that this is one of the key factors in the story that even led to the plotting of Yeshua's crucifixion, and the plotting, the death plot, so to speak, that the Pharisees were launching against him. So what he exemplified and was a living avatar and representative for us too, a divine manifestation for us, was of that power of love to heal all things. That it wasn't just necessary for getting through all things emotionally. It wasn't just the power to transform ourselves spiritually. It was and mentally. It's also the power to heal even things physically. We can solve our problems in this world. We can solve everything if we do it in the spirit of love and the power of love, through loving ourselves, through loving each other, loving ourselves through it, and believing and calling in and invoking that divine connection and that divine power of love to enlighten us, to illuminate us. We need to be enlightened and illuminated right now. We need to really be illuminated. So, and to be in peace during that time period is so important. So in closing, I would like to just have us close our eyes and just take a moment at this time, at this sacred time, and the celebration of Easter, which is also a celebration of spring. Easter was placed at the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the spring equinox. So we're still experiencing the very strong energies of this new surge of new life force coming in. We're just going to feel that strong new life, resurrection, rebirth as we close our eyes. Just tap into that energy that's flooding to us right now, flooding to us through the energies of the spring, through the recent full moon, and through the sacred time of Easter, and through the sacred gifts, presence of love and unconditional love being given to us by Yeshua. And let's just ask to have compassion and unconditional love, fearless compassion, unconditional love in us, and to be able to live that and act and serve out of that in our lives, to have it for ourselves and for others. And take this moment to send out your silent prayers and your love and your light and your compassion to all in the world who are ill, all who are dying, and the loved ones of those who've already passed away, both from the coronavirus as well as from all other illnesses and all other factors. Send that love and light and compassion out to them at this time. And then just send your love and light and blessing prayers out to all beings, to all spirit souls and beings upon the earth, and to all beings also in all realms. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be blessed. May all beings be whole. May love heal all, here and now. So be it, and so it is. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Have a happy Easter.